shoot them in the head.
So, outside of the live-action attempts at Resident Evil, which I already dragged myself through all the way to the bitter end, you can check out my views on those movies in this video, I'll link down below. But outside of that, Capcom has also produced a handful of CGI animated Resident Evil movies over the years. And as I play my way through the games, most of which for the very first time, I decided that I wanted to do as much of this in timeline order as I possibly could. And shockingly enough, these animated movies are considered to be canon within the storylines of the games themselves. So now, after finishing Resident Evil 4, I am brought to the 2008 CG animated film Resident Evil DEGENERATION. In all honesty, I was excited to get to these movies, especially after watching all the live action stuff, and now that I'm a bigger fan of a lot of these characters, I figured it would be nice to sit back and watch a story with them play out instead of frantically fighting for my life during the process like you do in the games. It could be an interesting and fun change of pace. And starting the movie off, I actually really like the exposition that's given in the opening scene. We get a lot of various montages of news reports and a good sense of what's happened since the Raccoon City incident. It recaps that, and then it also moves forward in the timeline, showing us that Umbrella has gone under as a company. People are now generally aware of the existence of bioweapons, even with all the cover-ups and lack of evidence to confirm it. Several strange incidents continue to happen, and the people are no longer idly standing by, and they are demanding answers and evidence for the horrors that others have faced. And since the fall of Umbrella, various strains of the virus have gotten out into the world, some being sold on the black market, basically causing situations where if somebody has enough money and resources, then they could get their hands on such dangerous items like the G and T virus. I like the dark reality that the fall of Umbrella actually might have caused a worse outcome for the world, because now these things are just out there, up for grabs for anybody that has the right power to access them. And I also like this continuing theme of these mega corporations all acquiring what they can of it in order to cause situations to make themselves look better in the public eye. Although Umbrella is iconic, all of these various companies really remind me of the same identity, and that's why I think Resident Evil presents the companies more of an idea rather than showing us a specific villain as a CEO or something like that. It's this idea that companies and corporations believe they can contain and control such dangerous artifacts while constantly being able to shift the blame onto other people and keep themselves out of the spotlight. It also brings back reminders of the Weyland-Yutani company from the Alien franchise. I feel like they have a lot in common. This movie is kind of structured like what one of the games would be, having big set-piece locations where the majority of the action happens. The first being an airport where we meet up with Claire Redfield as a T-virus zombie outbreak begins to take place. And I really love that it's the traditional Resident Evil T-virus zombies here, because that's always been my favorite element. I do like that the story expands and gives us more variety of different types of infections, but there's something about the classic zombie that can never go wrong in my opinion. And essentially, without question, the movie is trying to mimic the vibes of Resident Evil 2, because soon after, when the airport becomes quarantine, they send in Leon Kennedy to help deal with the situation, culminating in the reuniting of Leon and Claire, which are the two main characters from Resident Evil 2. And we watch them battle zombies and protect civilians, while escorting a grimy asshole senator out of the area as well. It was just great to see these two together again, and as far as just traditional zombie movie vibes go, I really like this opening airport segment a lot, and I wish it lasted a bit longer. There's several good set pieces and moments that really throw you into that zombie movie experience. Leon leading the charge, being experienced in this, as well as Claire herself, and with the CGI animation, there's plenty of times where it stops to give us moments like this. Leon is even using the same signature gun that he used in Resident Evil 4, although no conversations come up about any of his experiences in Spain. But the airport outbreak is just to get the ball rolling. When a pharmaceutical company named WillPharma rolls in with a vaccine to save the day, things already become very suspicious. And then a terrorist group threatens another T-virus outbreak unless all of the truth is revealed to the public, blowing up the vaccines. So there's conspiracies going on, uncertainty whether to trust those in power, and a family dynamic between a new character introduced, Angela, working to help Leon. They also kind of have a potentially romantic subplot, which I don't like, especially since Claire is right there, but we'll move past that. Because it's Angela's brother Curtis that is the one looking to expose WillPharma and commit acts of terror to do so. The cast separates as Leon helps Angela, and Claire heads to the WillPharma lab with its head researcher, Frederick Downing, to discover some shocking revelations about the company's access to the viruses and their research on the vaccines. The latter half of the film takes place at this facility, and it's attacked by Curtis, who gets injected with the G virus, transforming into some kind of genetic abomination. Which the transformed Curtis fight against the military was really fun to watch, and I don't know where Curtis ranks in the power scaling of Resident Evil creatures, but he seemed ridiculously strong as he was depicted here. There is kind of a silly moment where he sees a picture of his family and is temporarily reminded of his humanity, and I often wonder how these mutations work when it comes to things like that. Like, I do remember that Birkin was at least aware of his daughter for a while, but he was constantly mutating throughout the course of RE2. So I'm just assuming the longer the virus is within you, the more it depletes your sense of self and your original consciousness. But some people can hold that at bay for longer than others. At least that's what I think. Anybody that's an expert in Resident Evil lore, let me know down below. But we learn that the mastermind behind the outbreak was Downing himself, who was a former Umbrella employee, now using Curtis as his scapegoat to cover his tracks and selling the viruses and vaccines while he tries to fake his own death. But Leon and Claire catch him in the end with a tease of a new company, Tricell, that has bought WillPharma out, as well as assassinating the senator and erasing all information that he knows, which I believe is helping to set up the events that happen in Resident Evil 5. But I do have some major negatives here, trying to give the film the benefit of the doubt when it comes to the animation. I know it came out in 2008, and it's important to keep that in mind, but CG animation just wasn't quite up to par back then as it is now, and I wouldn't say that it looks bad per se. I think a lot of it looks fine. It's just that the characters are generally very stiff and awkward in their movements, with the exception of very specific action sequences where you can tell where more time and money was spent putting into it. But ultimately, yes, it does feel and look like a video game cutscene that just goes on for 90 minutes. It's like you're watching compilations of a story from a video game, but you never get a chance to play it for yourself. So although I was excited for that change of pace, it did feel kind of odd watching all of these scenes play out and then never having it cut back to the game. Also, Leon feels very wooden here, and I don't know how much of this is just the vocal performance from the English dub, and I get that the situation he's in is serious, but he seems very stoic and matter-of-fact here. He doesn't really feel the same as he was in Resident Evil 4, which was supposed to have happened right before this movie takes place. Maybe dealing with Ashley from RE4 long enough put him over the edge, I don't know, but something about Leon felt off here. Claire, on the other hand, feels just like I would imagine her to after Resident Evil 2. She really holds up, and she does have the same voice actress from the original RE2, and everything about her in the movie I enjoyed. It was only Leon that felt off to me. But the majority of the film focuses heavily on the action, with some horror elements infused too. There's nothing too over the top or gory here. And considering the structure of the film, if this were a video game, it feels like it would fit in very well with the Revelation series, considering Revelations 1 dealt with the same kind of scenario of uncovering a mystery of another outbreak after corrupt people in power got their hands on some bioweapons. The final battle between Leon and the Curtis Tyrant is admittedly a lot of fun, and here is where I thought the animation was at its best. They saved it for the very end. And as I was watching this, I kept thinking to myself, this is the kind of movie that I would have loved when I was 15. And I do mean that as a compliment. It reminds me of something I would have rented from the video store, like an anime film or a more adult-oriented action kind of movie in my youth. And even if they weren't the best produced or the best acted, if they gave me some compelling and fun action scenes, I would ride that hype for as long as I could. If I had seen this back when I was younger, I'd be watching it over and over again, probably every night for a while. Where I'm at now, I liked it just fine, and I think it's better than most of the live-action offerings in any case. You get an extra side story with Leon and Claire, some more world building about the spread of bioweapons, and the world becoming more aware of it. And a lot of action scenes that are absolutely video game cutscenes, but fun nonetheless. I also noticed some recognizable actors in the English dub, such as Laura Bailey and even Steve Bloom showing up to voice a soldier named Greg. The attempt to make a CG Resident Evil movie and have it take place in the same continuity of the games was an ambitious and probably daunting endeavor, but I don't think any harm really came from it. It offers some alternatives from having to sit through any of the live action stuff, and for their first attempt at it, I'd say it's not bad. My expectations were not too high, but I also wasn't disappointed. It's somewhere right in the middle. Anyways, let me know what you guys think of Resident Evil Degeneration down below. Leave your thoughts and opinions if you have seen it. As I continue my Resident Evil journey, I'm going to try to go as in order as possible, so these CG animated movies are all on my list to get through as well. Let me know what you think in the comments, give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. Go ahead and subscribe to stick around and see more. I do have a Resident Evil playlist on my channel now, so you can see my progress through all of the story, the games, and the movies. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.
Shoot them in the head.